As usual, we want to make sure that this is as accessible as possible to residents and business owners and others that want to stay engaged in the Upper State Street Regional Action Plan. So we are recording this meeting. This Upper State Street wrap has occurred weekly since early November, but prior to that, we were actually facilitating what we called an encampment response wrap to the work that was happening to be able to clear encampments in high fire danger areas and transitioning folks to a temporary safe shelter program. So now that that program has closed, we really are focusing on impacts to the region in its entirety, as well as any remaining impacts having that temporary safe shelter located.
I just started.
Thanks, folks, on the quick mute. Appreciate that. So again, we have had continually, the same priority regions identified. We have not only conducted site visits in the majority of those regions, but I know our service provider and outreach and case management partners, as well as law enforcement, have been, heavily going through and making observations, mitigating impacts, both enforcement as well as outreach and case management that can happen in those regions. The status update that we received last week was things are, I hate to use the term, kind of business as usual. Not necessarily an uptick in terms of what we saw with folks exiting the temporary safe shelter project up in that region, but also some level of reduction in terms of facilitating street exits with CityNet and other partners, but having kind of some familiar faces still remaining in the area. So I wanted to jump to Sergeant Dijon first, just again, because you are the one that is not only going to those priority regions regularly, but up in the area regularly with your team. And if you have any shift in observations in the last week.
No, as you said, it's kind of been status quo. I'm happy to answer any questions or, if anyone has anything that they want to talk about, but no. And I spent, again, a couple hours riding through the North End a couple of days ago, and it's not like there isn't, it's not perfect, but it's definitely lacking the volume of issues we had months ago. Like McKenzie Park has been nice and clean for a while now. The neighborhood surrounding 7-Eleven, I'm not finding a lot of criminal activity occurring when I'm up in those areas. Keep in mind, I'm there daytime. My team, myself, we're off by afternoon, 4:30. Right. So there could be an uptick in activity after I'm gone that I'm not seeing. But from what I'm seeing, it's looking fairly similar to the last few reports.
Thank you. And I want to open it up to the residents and again, business owners in the area that are on the call. If there is a new priority region that you want to elevate and or observations that you've seen in the last week since we were able to connect. Any uptick in observations in the current priority regions? Or concerns in general to share, questions and concerns? Yeah, Conrad.
So I know this isn't in the city limits, but it's right outside the city limits. Those railroad tracks, right behind kind of that juvenile center.
Right.
That's super encamped right now. That's all the people that were displaced from that fire right at the 101. Mm-hmm. That's a tinderbox. That's going to go up if those people aren't moved from there. I know it's not within city limits, but I mean,
Chris, yeah, no, Conrad, I totally get that. I've had the same observations. Chris or Father John, just in terms of the folks that you've engaged, and Chris, I know that as part of the encampment response that's happening countywide, that area has been prioritized by that task force, kind of what that back and forth in communication is like.
So yeah, we receive reports about that location and about the location, the State and 154 bus stop. And whenever we get those, we forward those on to the seal boss of the county. And I know that they have a different process than we do. That the response tends to take a little bit longer. But they have their process, they're going through it. and I do know that both of those locations have been prioritized. The one at State 154 is primarily on Caltrans property, so that's a whole nother agency. We just spoke with them, I think this morning, and it's on their list, but I think they have some higher priority locations in the north part of the county that they're tackling right now. But they have said that they plan on addressing that one, hopefully sooner rather than later. But for the one near the boys camp, you'd have to direct, you'd have to get in touch with Lucille Boss at the county for a status update on that.
Well, and Chris, I will reach out both to Fire Inspector Erin Lynn to get a status update just in terms of coordination with the county as well as Lucille. And so we did that last week, just knowing that it was on the priority list, but not yet in terms of ready to post notice and try to clear. So Conrad, we'll go back again and get a more recent update and communicate back to the group, because you're right, it is definitely there. There are a number of individuals which can demonstrate things and belongings that are there that could really have that fire danger. So, and I think it was helpful for Fire Inspector Lynn to really articulate what they consider to be imminent threat versus something that, again, they're making sure is prioritized, that folks are aware of. And again, if there's kind of an uptick in behavior there that could be problematic for fire danger, that they're reprioritizing that. So we will get back to the wrap on the status of where that is.
Yeah, as far as Barbara, as far as the center is concerned, our numbers are going back up again.
Yeah.
Don't hear a lot of. I know the city cleared out that spot there as you off ramp there at on 101 and State Street.
Mm-hmm.
So that we had a number of people that came in from around that area, but I haven't noticed a lot of new people maybe coming from that camp by over the juvenile hall.
Okay. Okay. No, I think we've seen an increase across the board, and Kayla and Jeff with our neighborhood navigation centers, you've seen a bit of an uptick kind of outside of the usual first of the month, last of the month cycle.
Yeah, one of the things that might be helpful if you have this woman from the county part of this, the wrap, or someone from the county, because it gets ticklish when it's right there on the line, whether it's
agreed. Yeah, Lucille Boss gets all of the information and the agenda updates and notes from the wraps. It conflicts with another standing meeting, so she can only really engage once a month. So again, regular communication with her, but in terms of presence, Father Johnny, I wish they could always be here, but we, again, always have that open pathway of communication. So please know, on the priority list, but like Chris was mentioning, unfortunately, there are higher priorities right now, but we just want everyone to be aware. We know that there's danger, a dangerous environment there for everyone. It's unsafe living and sleeping conditions in general. But Father John, I'm glad that you're able to support folks that are, partaking in services at the day center that reside in that location as well. Any other concerns, questions to share? And actually, Conrad, just in terms of next week and the site visit, I know that Al and the CityNet team has regularly engaged with those folks. I'll check back with him just in terms of, if a site visit in terms of more attention and more engagement on that region would be helpful to him in his efforts, and to the neighborhood in general. And if we can maybe hear from him some, whether movement's happening beyond the day center into the Upper State Street area from that encampment or not.
Hi, Brooke with CityNet here.
Hi, Brooke.
We do actually go up in that encampment a lot. We actually were there yesterday, and we are here right now, just leaving, taking a client somewhere. So we're here up in this area at that specific campsite at least once or twice a week.
Okay.
There are two now CityNet clients. One did just get into hedges.
Oh, great.
Tuesday. So yeah, and the other one is still on the list, but male beds just don't open as fast as female, but waiting to be on the to get in. But yeah.
Brooke, thank you so much for that update. I really appreciate your attention as a team on that region. About approximately how many individuals are residing in that location, and how many are you engaged with as the CityNet team?
Before it was just 2, there's a couple, but then once the other camps got cleared due to the fire, there was another couple that migrated there, and then I think just some of their friends migrated there. So altogether now, what I've noticed is there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 maybe. But at the moment, only 2 are enrolled in services with CityNet. One individual we are actually not allowed to work with.
Okay.
Barbara, one of the issues for that whole area, because we've been looking for a permanent site in that area for the Virgil Cardano Center, and we were told that the county had a master plan for that whole area. It would be nice to find out what that is.
They're not usually revealing on that, but you're right. Any information would be helpful information. And so, Father John, I do think Lucille might be able to join us. We're gonna, as you saw on the agenda, we're gonna be shifting kind of the structure of the regional action plan meetings moving forward. And so having them less frequent, but at a more optimal time for that kind of county level communication, as well as city staff, city leadership, and our service provider partners. That's our ideal place to be, and so that we have that real-time information when questions are raised that are in the county oversight versus the city oversight. I appreciate you bringing that up. So as Father John was referring, the county is actively looking at the availability of their properties and lots for temporary, I would say temporary shelter locations and or kind of non-congregate sheltering like modular units or pallet homes. We know, again, quicker to get up, but not necessarily a long-term solution when it comes to permanent supportive housing. So really trying to keep every short-term and long-term strategy in play as we move forward. Any other questions, concerns, comments? This really is, again, the second meeting of the month where we want to make sure that we're hearing directly from residents in the area, business owners in the area, and the impacts that you're experiencing.
Barbara, I got one question.
Yeah.
So when, maybe it's already out, but the data from the last homelessness count, like the real in-depth data, where do I, as just a public member, go to get that, or is it even out yet?
So we have been told that they're going to present the detailed data at the next county continuum of care meeting on May 5th. So Conrad, thank you for bringing that up, because that staff report should be posted several days prior to that. And then we can have the detailed information to share with all of you. So that would be the goal as we move into May and kind of shift when the all-call RAP meetings is what we're calling them, and I'll get into a detail in a second, where we can share that level of data. And in an ideal world, we'd be able to have the county on the call to be able to present that data and be able to answer questions. But we're I guess a week-ish away
Awesome.
from having more detail there. Yeah. And in that same vein, we did have a very comprehensive presentation to City Council this week on Tuesday about the progress of the Act on Homelessness Collaborative and Strategic Plan in the City of Santa Barbara. We were able to achieve 99 of the 100 street exit goal in 2021, even having to readjust because of the number of exits back to the street from the temporary safe shelter project at the Rose Garden Inn. So again, only possible because of the coordination and collaboration we've had through these regional action plans, as well as the investment in more capacity as it relates to case management and outreach. Any other, again, questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions for an SB Act site visit next week? And Brooke, I'll reach back to you and Al and the team to coordinate with you next week, again, on an area that we could be helpful. Kayla finally had a win from our first site visit several months ago on the Hope, Larada, Hitchcock path of an individual that we have been working with over several months now, finally being open to case management through the Safe Parking program. So it just lets you know how many times you need to engage, building trust and rapport with individuals. And I would say those who are living in their vehicles, because the majority of them are working. It's simply the fact that they can't afford housing here, don't feel like they should be utilizing resources, asking for help, because they often say to us, there's other people who need it more than I do. And so just getting that level of engagement will take a win wherever and however we can get it. So just giving you an example of the time that it takes and that we have a win in terms of advancing and being able to support someone, hopefully access housing that we saw during our first site visit. Kayla, anything to add to that?
No, just really grateful for all of the participation during these site visits, and just showing us and telling us where you see these impacts, where you see folks regularly, because even knowing that these individuals have been in their vehicles on Hope, Larada, Hitchcock helps us know how to repeat outreach, how to connect with folks, and allow us to achieve some of these minuscule, but in the long run, significant wins. So just appreciate that constant engagement and pointing us to folks, because it takes a village to make all of these connections.
Agreed. And Vicky actually called the other week and I let her know because she had actually connected us with that individual. So great to have that again, coordination with residents in the area. Moving on to our other agenda items. So we put out a few options in terms of restructuring the regional action plans. One, because we felt that many of the other neighborhoods and just the tools and resources and the level of communication and reporting and reporting back on action taken through the city encampment link, as well as individuals and concern link, that we're able to shift how frequently we meet as a regional action plan. And because we know as there was an uptick because of certain projects in the area, we wanted to be able to connect weekly. But seeing that some of that has, as Sergeant Dijon said, kind of reached the status quo, that we can go to meeting less frequently. So we met with a focus group that actually had representation from all regional action plans across the 4 neighborhoods that we're currently active in, to talk about several options of how can we be more accessible to folks that have kind of dropped off participation, be more valuable and informative across neighborhoods. And so we can get a better picture what's happening citywide and the strategies that are in place citywide, and the progress that we've been able to make, as well as understanding that we're still in an environment that productivity has been maximized with virtual connection, but that we would really like to get back to an in-person dynamic in some ways. So the proposal that was landed on last week was that each neighborhood would have a site visit monthly. And so that we would be communicating with you a little bit more about when that site visit would occur. You're more than welcome to participate, and that we would again provide detailed observations and action items from that site visit back to the group. So that would still occur neighborhood by neighborhood monthly. But then we would also have this monthly, what we call all call, where all 4 regions are coming together, again, talking about impacts to the area, how they're being mitigated or how they're being addressed, and then continually monitoring progress on key action items. So that is the proposal out there. I think the feedback that we got last week was that there was support to move to that monthly kind of meeting dynamic, and that the site visit obviously would be in person with that in-person connection opportunity, and that the all-call regional action plan would be virtual. So we'd be able to maximize participation across all partners. Any just additional thoughts on that proposal, and if it would be helpful and productive for this region? And we just want to make sure that we're continuing to meet your expectations on responsiveness, and being able to report progress on key action items. And I will say it continues to emphasize the need to utilize that city link and form to report what you're observing in your neighborhood. So as Chris has said many times before, that information in terms of as much detail as you can provide is monitored, and reports and deployment is given to CityNet daily based on the information from that reporting structure, as well as law enforcement, as well as fire, as well as where there's county jurisdiction versus city jurisdiction. So that data reporting mechanism is really our opportunity to not only coordinate better with several providers and agencies and government agencies, but also to be able to target resources to be able to address the concerns that have been reported. Okay, my follow-up question is, I know that 10 o'clock on Thursdays hasn't been the best in terms of being accessible to residents and business owners. Any thoughts on another day and time that would work a little bit better for all of us that have a 9 to 5, 8 to 7, 8 to 8 job? Any thoughts on, again, being more accessible in terms of time and day of the week?
I think it's going to be difficult finding a time that's going to fit most people. I like this particular time because of my schedule, but because we record it, I think that's it would be interesting to get your feedback from the people that have watched the recording and also ask them.
That's a great question. Our YouTube viewings aren't, super high, but I think being able to offer it for those that do want to watch, and we just take really succinct meeting minutes so that we can also make those available. But because we're proposing an all-call wrap across neighborhoods, we will continue to record as well as capture meeting minutes for people to touch in and engage however they see fit. And so, Father John, the communication that we receive as a team is usually one-on-one from residents, again, with concerns, questions, with or without either watching the video or asking for meeting minutes. And we will always continue to be responsive in that way. I'll offer that our waterfront regional action plan, which is heavy in terms of hospitality industry, hotel, motel owners and business owners, meets on Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock. And that seems to be the best time because it's before, again, an uptick in terms of their time and responsibilities over the weekends, as well as the time of day in terms of getting through most of what they need to during the day and having that 1 hour open in the afternoon. I'm just putting it out there in terms of trying to, again, come together as all 4 regions. If an afternoon call around 3 o'clock would be either the same in terms of accessibility or a little bit more accessible. Any comment, hey, whatever time it is, it's going to take us a couple months to adjust our calendars to make it happen.
Hey, Barbara, it's Liz. So it depends on what day it falls in.
Okay.
On the Thursday of the month, it would conflict with COC meetings if we do a 3 o'clock on Thursdays.
And Tuesday City Council. Yeah.
Yeah, Tuesday City Council.
Yeah.
So Thursdays at 10 a.m. have worked for me.
Yeah.
And it's Thursdays is one of the few days I don't have 20 meetings as opposed to Wednesdays or Tuesdays. So for me, Thursday at 10 o'clock still works.
Okay. Would a Wednesday afternoon work for you and city staff partners?
Well, we have the waterfront.
Right. So that would no longer be. We have now that is going to be a site visit the first Wednesday of the month. But in terms of the all call, if that has worked for your accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, I have that time booked on my calendar. So if we switch it to a different type of meeting, it won't conflict. I think Chris says, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking Jeff. There's somebody that I know that Wednesdays are usually rough for them.
Okay, that's a good point.
Wednesdays are usually rough.
Okay.
Wednesday mornings more so, but
okay.
I mean, I've been able to make the waterfront one, so if that one's gone, then
well, fine. And if it's less, Chris, I think I think our biggest thing is that it's tough to make these meetings as frequently as they have been. So if we can lessen the load, but thank you for contributing that for Wednesday. So you're right, Liz, we were looking at existing wrap times that are already held on folks' calendars to kind of consolidate into that once a month time. And we still know that in terms of kind of setting up reporting and communication with the city and Chris, that we were looking at kind of quarterly reporting on that encampment individuals of concern link. So being able to prioritize the Wednesday once every 3 months. So we'll see where we land. But Jeff, any thoughts? I know that you just had the waterfront wrap yesterday. They're still really liking that Wednesday afternoon time. And then we have Friday morning right now for East Side and State Street. I think State Street wants off on Fridays. So we're going to move that. But we'll get back to you with that final time and being able to start that new schedule in May is our hope. Yeah, okay. All right, any other thoughts? Yeah, it's tentative.
Right? Because we have the State Street call next Friday, and what Waterfront and Downtown tentatively talked about is a wrap together. So, but we need to talk with states first and confirm that. But we have tentatively kind of picked our time.
Okay. And the feedback that we got just in terms of the all-call wrap is that it is helpful to know what's happening in other neighborhoods as you're, again, experiencing impacts in yours. So we definitely think that we're going to be able to really create a really valuable and productive dialogue across neighborhoods too. Any other thoughts there? I know that these are basic questions, but we just want to make sure that we're meeting you all where you're at and continuing to be as responsive as possible. All right, any final comments here this morning and suggestions for the site visit next week?
Hey, Barbara, are those visits
Yes.
also at 10?
They have been, depending on where we're headed and the feedback from the residents on the best time to be there to be able to observe those impacts. So it's been around the 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock time.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll again reach back to the CityNet team to get their suggestions on how we can help them and support them in their outreach as well. And Kayla, I know that you've been working closely with the safe parking program. Is there any area that they've kind of highlighted to you beyond that Hope, Loretta, Hitchcock that we could potentially engage next week?
Nothing new other than that region. I know there's been some movement over in the safe parking program. One of their staffers left the team, and one of their current staffers is currently at a conference. So I will follow up with them just to see if there's anything new that they're hearing about, seeing about, or having reported.
And Conrad, you know, would be interested to know it's a Housing First conference this week in Seattle. All about Housing First as a federal mandate and policy and statewide mandate and policy.
How's that working for them?
Yeah, best practices and approaches. So I am looking forward to hearing back from the team that's up there about what they've learned this week. Anything else before we close out briefly this morning, checking in? All right, thank you all so much. Again, next week's site visit, we'll be communicating the last week of April what that final new schedule is. And just again, if you celebrate this weekend, enjoy the holiday with your family, and really appreciate your time and engagement today. Thank you all very much. Take care.